and welcome into episode 5 of Snakes Territory. I'm your host, Jesse Friedman, joined once again today by the one and only Jack Sommers, who just arrived at home after the Diamondbacks finale against the Baltimore Orioles. Jack, how we doing after a few days back at Chase Field?
It's been a really interesting week. It's been a lot of fun, as always. Missing having you there alongside, but we have a lot of fun with some of the other writers there in the press box, and it was a good series. Lots of things to talk about.
Well, let's jump right in. The Diamondbacks take 2 out of 3 from the Baltimore Orioles. I guess the sky has gone from falling to not falling, according to the Twitterverse, at least. Now suddenly things are in a very good spot for Diamondbacks fans, it appears. But a lot of that has to do with Corbin Carroll, Jack. That's where we wanted to start our show today. Corbin homered again in the finale of the series. He had 5 hits over the course of the 3 games. I know we talked about him in our last show as well, and how he really looked the part of a legitimate MVP candidate, and the last few days have just been more of the same as Corbin just continues to rake on a daily basis.
Yeah, everything he's hitting is just absolutely smoked. Even the outs are 100 miles an hour. He started off the game with a line single to center that, if anybody had been in the way, it would have put a hole through him. He homered. He's really putting up some tremendous numbers already. He's hit 320. He's got an 1164 OPS. He's got 5 home runs. And interestingly, since we're diving into the potential of an MVP candidacy, what are we, 12, 13 games into the year, he leads the National League in Baseball Reference WAR. He was tied with Kyle Tucker coming into today at 1 apiece, but of course, Corbin had a big day and Kyle Tucker did not. And then over at Fangraphs, they had Tucker at 1.3 and Corbin at 1.0. And considering how quickly those things change in small sample size, Corbin may have even taken the lead there. So, he's just an early front runner here, as hot as he's been. Talking to Tori about it today, he acknowledged this is probably as good as he's seen Corbin Carroll since that 6-week stretch of, May, end of April, beginning of May, up until the beginning of June in 2023. And he may even look better than that. Maybe we'll get into his batting stance and changes and all of that, but he's looking fantastic. He's even throwing better.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. That's something we'll have to talk more about at some point as well. But yeah, obviously without Ketel Marte in the lineup for what appears to be a pretty significant amount of time, you really need Corbin to step up, and of course other guys too. But Corbin is probably the best hitter on this team when Ketel Marte is not available, and it feels like he's producing enough for both of them right now with how good he's been at the plate lately. It's an 1164 OPS, and I believe Sarah Langs from MLB also tweeted out his very lovely Baseball Savant page earlier today that got some traction. I think I read off some of these numbers in our last show, but I'll do it again. Corbin entered today with a 352 expected batting average, a 760 expected slugging percentage. So again, it's such a small sample size, but I do think that there's something to be said for not only him putting up these extraordinary numbers, but also the underlying stats being even stronger than what the actual surface level numbers have been so far.
That's pretty scary. I mean, he's been unlucky. Holy cow!
Right. It seems like the batting stance, Jack, is that I know you're there every day. You kind of have a sense of maybe what he's thinking and feeling at the plate right now. Is he attributing most of this to those changes that he made in the offseason?
Actually, no, he's downplaying it, which is interesting. I even asked him today, is that, because he's holding his hands higher than he used to at address. But he said the swing is still the same. The bat path is still the same. I even tried to press him a little bit about, well, is it at least maybe helping you cover the high end of the strike zone better? But he didn't bite on that. He just seemed to want to downplay the whole thing, like it wasn't all that important. And Corbin's very humble, and he's also very self-effacing and doesn't like to talk about himself too much. So it's a little tough to get things out in a scrum situation when there's 12 guys standing around. So I'm going to follow up with him more when I get a chance in the clubhouse. But at this point, it doesn't matter. Whatever he's doing, just keep going.
It's been really, really remarkable. Certainly, if you're a D-backs fan, you hope that Corbin Carroll continues on this path. Of course, Corbin wasn't the only one who produced big in the finale of the series. The Diamondbacks win this game handily, 9-0. It feels like one of maybe two fairly stress-free wins that the Diamondbacks have had this season. There was also the second game of the year, right, where they won, I believe it was 8-1. Merrill Kelly was really good in that game. And this is also a Merrill Kelly game, Jack. Merrill Kelly was pretty good. Or sorry, this was not a Merrill Kelly game.
It was Brandon Pfaadt's game.
Yes, yesterday was a Merrill Kelly game. Sorry, everyone. It's been a long day. I'm going crazy over here. Yes, this was a Brandon Pfaadt game. And if you're wondering why it says Corbin Burns on your screen right now, that also I will attribute to it being a long day on my end. That should say Brandon Pfaadt. But he was good in this game, Jack. Pfaadt, 6 innings, no runs allowed. I guess it maybe didn't feel like he was the central story because the Diamondbacks offense scored so many runs and they didn't necessarily need this caliber of performance from him, but a really big step in the right direction.
Well, he jumped right out and established his fastball. Came out hot with the fastball. It looked really good. He threw a lot of four-seamers, a lot of sinkers. And then he started throwing his curveball. He only threw 15 sweepers. I think he threw like 15 sweepers and 15 curveballs and 15 changeups, and the rest of his 93 pitches were four-seamers and sinkers. So it was interesting that he wasn't sweeper dependent, which is the pitch that everyone associates with him. And he kept them mostly off balance. There were some hard hit balls to the outfield that were kind of what I call fliners, line drive fly balls, maybe 18 to 24% launch angle, not really high flies that were hit 98, 104 miles an hour. But the outfielders did a good job of getting to him. And he worked efficiently. He was, just letting him put it in play. You see, he only had 3 strikeouts. It's not like he was pitching for punch outs, but that allowed him to get 6 full innings pretty comfortably. He had 2 little hiccup innings, like just one inning he walked 2 batters, and then his last inning of work he gave up a couple of singles. But Perdomo and Geraldo Perdomo and Tim Tower combined to turn a nice little nifty double play to end the inning and get him out of it really smoothly. So overall, a really good outing for Brandon Pfaadt.
Thanks for tuning in to Snakes Territory. We're going to take a quick break to hear a few words from our friends over at Foul Territory.
FT fam, you gotta check out what Harry's brings to the table. And I hope that if you're listening to this, you check out the video version of this conversation at some point, because that razor, Eric Kratz, looks like it stands out for multiple reasons.
I'll take the cover off. All these blades, each one of them ridiculously sharp, meant for a nice smoothness here and up there.
German engineered blades made in their own factory. They stay sharp longer. Okay. You've got customizable delivery options. Harry stands out for the sharpness, for the pricing, for the variety. And you can get a 5-blade razor, a weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover for just $3 at harrys.com/foul. Get the edge on your shave with Harry's. Normally their trial set's $13 right now. You can get it for just $3 at harrys.com/foul. That's our exclusive FT link. harrys.com/foul for a $3 trial set.
You mentioned Pfaadt only threw 15 sweepers, which is interesting. He normally, sometimes you see him throw that pitch quite a bit. But today it was 27% four-seamers, 25% sinkers, and then a 3-way tie for his third most used pitch with that sweeper, the changeup, and the curveball. And I want to narrow in on the curveball here for a second, Jack, because that's a pitch that, especially toward the end of last season, it seemed like he was trying to incorporate that more as a weapon, especially against lefties. I at one point looked at some of the metrics, the movement numbers with that pitch, and it was interesting how the curveball he threw toward the end of last year was pretty different from the curveball he threw at the beginning of last year. It had a lot more drop.
Right.
a little bit less side to side movement, which you could understand. Maybe works better as a swing and miss pitch with that shape. And yeah, he threw 15 of them in this game. The numbers aren't crazy. He had two whiffs on 8 swings, 4 foul balls, a couple balls in play. He did get quite a bit of chase outside the zone. He only threw 2 out of those 15 pitches in the strike zone, but the chase rate on pitches outside the zone was over 50%. Obviously, we're not talking about that many curveballs here, but yeah, that's a really big pitch for him, Jack. Like, he's kind of been searching here ever since he entered the majors for a weapon that he could really consistently use against lefties. Certainly the changeup has been there for him at times, but adding the curveball to that mix would really be a big help for him.
And it still was all set up by the fastball. I mean, he was in his zone 65% of the time on both his fastballs. So, but he wasn't putting him in the middle of the plate too much. And that set up the curveball tremendously. That's why he was able to get that much chase with it. So very impressive. I mean, Brandon Pfaadt with a good curveball alongside that sweeper and, his good fastball, all of a sudden you're looking at a different type of guy. So a lot of hope there. I was looking up earlier today, going back to 2023, minimum 250 innings pitched, the gap between ERA and FIP, which for Pfaadt is a negative number, right? His ERA is almost a run higher than his fielding independent pitching, meaning he hadn't been getting the run prevention that his underlying metrics would indicate that he should be getting. So it's really good to see him have an outing like this where he didn't depend on, he didn't have 8 strikeouts and 1 walk, but gave up hits at all the wrong times. So hopefully he can close that gap up, and like a game like today where he's learning how to navigate a lineup the second time through and through the 4th, 5th, 6th innings a little bit more cleanly, more please. That's what we need to see from him. And I think that improved curveball is really going to be a big piece of that.
And maybe most importantly, Jack, he did not allow a home run in this game, which of course is something that we're always keeping track of with Brandon Pfaadt. He was good in this game, but as I said earlier, the offense kind of stole the show. This one was close for a while, but eventually the Diamondbacks really broke this game open. Corbin Carroll, we talked about earlier, he was 2 for 4 with that home run in this game. Josh Naylor had a really nice day at the plate, 3 for 4 with a home run. Pavin Smith went 3 for 5 with a double and a homer. I almost didn't believe you when we were prepping for the show, Jack, and you told me that Pavin Smith was hitting 400. And I was like, you meant for the series, right? Like, you meant for these 3 games. And then I look it up, and sure enough, Pavin Smith is literally batting 400. So as we talked about in our last show, he continues to deliver in a kind of DH, occasionally playing in the field role for this team.
Yeah, and his 2-run shot into the pool, which is he's the first guy to hit a ball into the pool since the last time he did it, which was last year in September. And he was excited by that. I asked him, I said, you think it's kind of cool to put it in the pool? And he goes, oh, absolutely. It's really cool that we got this pool there, and I love putting it in there. So, it was a nice little moment for him, but it was also a key moment in the game. It put them up 4-0 at the time. Kind of moved the needle on what was, to that point, a pretty close game. And then Naylor followed was his home run, and Timmy Tower had a 2-run single after that. So all of a sudden they put a 5 spot up there in the 5th inning, and from that point on, it was just cruise all the way home.
Yeah, just all the way around a nice win for the Diamondbacks, especially bouncing back after that rough series loss against the Washington Nationals. Another player on the offensive side that I want to hit on real quick, Geraldo Perdomo has also enjoyed a really impressive start to the year. He was also among the Diamondbacks who homered in this game. He's 15 for 45 to start the season, Jack. It's a 333 average, a 900 OPS. We did see Perdomo over the first half of that 2023 season where he was an all-star put up numbers kind of like this and find a way to maintain it for a couple of months. We'll see if he's able to do that in this case. But what stands out to me most is that he has 6 walks compared to 2 strikeouts. That's 2 strikeouts in 55 plate appearances. Like, I don't care who you are. Like that's a really low strikeout rate, even for, Luis Arraez. Like think of whoever you think strikes out the least in baseball. That's a strikeout rate below 4% when league average is generally in the low 20s. So Perdomo is making all kinds of contact out there, and of course continues to hold his own defensively at shortstop as well.
I think he's doing a little more than that, even. According to Fangraphs, he's tied for the most defensive runs saved on their shortstop list. So, I mean, we saw early in the year, it looked like there were a couple of rough plays, but he smoothed that out pretty quickly. And he's making all the plays he has to make, and then a few more after that. So, just really interesting, player. You look at him and you think, okay, the batted ball metrics never seem to support what he's doing at the plate, but he looks like he's hitting the ball a little bit harder to me this year.
So far that has certainly been the case. It's still early. We'll see if Perdomo is able to maintain that. I guess transitioning to the series as a whole, Jack, we mentioned earlier, Diamondbacks take 2 out of 3. The Monday game, I guess we can start with the Monday game, and then we'll get into the Tuesday game, which had some wild moments in it. The Monday game, though, Zach Gallen was not able to repeat what he did in New York. It was far from that. 4 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 5 runs, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts. I guess the caveat with that game, of course, Jack, is that you could argue that Tim Tawa probably, instead of getting 1 out, should have had an inning-ending double play in that 5th inning, at which point the Orioles only had 2 runs on the board. So maybe the start for Gallen looks a whole lot different if Tim Tawa is able to make that play. I think that's fair. But at the same time, those mistakes are going to happen, and you want you want an ace caliber pitcher to be able to bounce back from that, and Gallen was unable to do that on Monday.
At the same time, I mean, Zach tried to take responsibility. He said, look, I'm the one that backed myself into that corner.
Yeah.
When it happened, he was clearly frustrated. He squatted down on the mound. He kind of bit his glove. You could see he was very frustrated by the play. I mean, it was a sharp ground ball. It was over 100 miles an hour. It kind of took a funny little skip and bounced up and hit Tawa and somewhere in the body, I don't know, lower chest, abdomen, and instead of getting into his glove. And I did have an image in my mind's eye, like Ketel Marte with his quick hands. He's so fast.
Sure.
He scoops that ball up. I mean, he's got that ball. So there's a little bit of a drop off there. But Gallen himself said, look, I backed myself into a corner. I mean, he gave up a base hit and walked 2 guys and loaded the bases, put the defenders on their heels. And he took accountability for that. Of course, Tawa himself at the same time also was taking accountability. I mean, they're all saying the right things. But the frustration was palpable. I mean, it was clearly there. And then, next thing you know, boom, base hit, 2 more runs score, 3 runs coming in the inning. But they went 1 for 19 for the rest of the game. They had 1 base hit after the 4th inning. I asked Torrey, I said, what did you think? Were you satisfied with the approaches? And he was like, not so much, not some of them. There were some at-bats that just seemed to get thrown away there. Not every one. But, when you only score 1 run, you go 1 for 19 over the last 5+ innings, it's not really a recipe for winning either. Even if Tawa makes that play, sure, the complexion of the game's different. It might feel a little bit different as a 1-run game, but D-backs couldn't score. They couldn't hit. And that was what was going on in that game. Clearly later on in the series, they righted the ship a bit. But, the coming back to Zach, it was disappointing that he struggled that much again with command. I mean, it's the whole thing about consistency. He's great one start and then not very good the next. And they're going to need more than that out of him. He's got to find a way to, get consistent with his timing and his delivery, and being able to put the ball over the plate.
That's something that Nick Pecoro, when had him on the show over the weekend, he noted that when Zach Gallen fires off an outing like he had in New York, that sometimes it sticks around for a while. That wasn't the case, at least not yet. So we'll continue to see what Zach Gallen looks like. It's an interesting situation right now, Jack, where if Gallen went out and, had 13 strikeouts in his next outing, like, I don't think I'd be totally shocked. But I also wouldn't be totally shocked if he went out and, had another kind of uneven performance like this. So, obviously it's a big year for Gallen, and it's still early, only being 3 starts in at this point. It's also still early for Merrill Kelly, but he really righted the ship in a nice way in that Tuesday game, Jack. 6 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs, but only 2 of them were earned, 2 walks and 4 strikeouts in that one. I know there was a lot more to to the Tuesday game than just Merrill Kelly having a pretty good day at the yard. But what did you think of him in that Tuesday game?
He locked in after the first inning. I mean, he gave a couple runs in the first inning. He wasn't commanding the ball well. His ball-to-strike ratio wasn't good. Fell behind, walked a guy, and then boom, base hit, and here come the runs. And you thought, okay, here we go again. To that point, the Diamondbacks had allowed multiple runs in 5 of 6 games. Through the first 6 games, in the first inning. Through the first 6 games, they hadn't allowed any runs in the first. And then next thing you know, you turn around 5 games later, they had allowed 13 and were tied with the A's for the most first inning runs allowed.
Right.
And then Merrill gives up 2 more, and you're like, okay, here we go again. But just like that, starting from the second inning, he locked in and just totally dominated the Orioles the second through 6th inning. There was an event or 2 or 3 that happened in a wild 7th inning. But what it boiled down to was Laz Diaz did not call what seemed like a very obvious check swing on Tyler O'Neill. That led to a walk. And so, of course, Torey Lovullo goes out to the mound. And there was a lot of, agita going on at that point. And Torey even asked the players, like, are we all still in this game? As he got to them, because he said he had his head down. And he gets to the mound, he says, so is everybody still in this game? And Josh Naylor's like, yeah, I took care of it. Everything's fine. But Merrill, barked something as he started walking off the mound, and Laz Diaz was not, willing to just turn around and face right field and let it ride. He just stood there watching Merrill. And then Merrill got close to the foul line, turned around, said a couple more magic words, and then gone he was. He had been warned, hey, enough. He went over the line and he got tossed. So
now to be fair, I just want to interject really quick here, Jack, that Merrill Kelly was gone anyway because he had been removed from the game. I always find it funny when a player gets tossed, as they're walking to the dugout to exit the game anyway. But please continue.
Well, it's a funny little story behind that is that's the second time that Kelly's been tossed, and both times were as he was leaving after being removed from the game, and both times Torey then turned around and got in an argument too, and he got tossed. So both times Merrill Kelly got tossed was the same circumstance, and also Torey got tossed. So anyway, Torey went up and got billed cap to cap with Laz Diaz and had a very, very heated argument. He joked this morning, it was almost therapeutic for him, to unload all that frustration that had been building over the previous few days. So then Shelby Miller comes in, ends up the bases loaded. He hit a batter. The bases were loaded. And fly ball gets hit out into shallow left field. Lourdes Gurriel makes a rolling, sprawling, sliding catch. Great catch. Comes up throwing and nearly threw it up into the press box. I mean, I was watching the trajectory of the throw. I was like, where is this ball going? It was so high. It was to the third base side of the home plate, but into the netting. So anyway, Cedric Mullins, he runs back to tag, sees where the throw is. He comes home. Tyler O'Neill did not tag, and he got caught off. The third base umpire never signaled out, so maybe he got confused by that. He ends up at third base. Diamondbacks appeal. They throw the ball back and forth between third and second, finally get a out call, and then the Orioles challenged both the catch and I guess the positioning of the runners or the fact that the umpire never called out. A very long delay took place while New York tried to sort it out. Finally, it was ruled a double play, and the inning was mercifully over. It was a little wild. Anyway, D-backs held on to win that game 4-3, and J Mart looked really great closing out that game, by the way.
Yeah, J Mart has looked pretty outstanding in basically every outing he's had so far this season. That's a big positive takeaway here from the first couple weeks for the D-backs. But yeah, that seventh inning, Jack, that was that was really something. I didn't catch it live, so it's been fun going back and digging through all of the chaos that took place. Lourdes Gurriel, that was every once in a while there's a play that a major league player makes, and I'm like, okay, 99.9999% of the time I can't say this, but every once in a while there's a play where I'm like, all right, I could have done it better. Like, you know what? I actually could have done that better. And Lourdes Gurriel's throw was, obviously it slipped or something. He has generally a pretty decent, reasonably accurate arm, which I do not. But you don't see throws that are quite that offline in the majors too often. So,
well, the funny thing about it was, he stayed out in the outfield. Everybody else left the field. Like, they knew it was a double play. The entire Diamondbacks team, this challenge went on for almost 10 minutes. It was ridiculous. And everybody else left the field. And Lourdes is just standing in the outfield with his glove over his head, staring up at the video board, all alone, wearing it out in left field. All by his lonesome. And then finally later, when he came back into the dugout, and you just saw the smile of relief on his face. It was pretty funny.
It was a big win. It was a really big win too for the D-backs. Like, those two games in DC that they just weren't quite able to get over the hump toward the end of the game, right, on both Saturday and Sunday, losing both of those games by 1 run. D-backs have left. It's felt like they've left a few on the table so far this season. That's one of the few that they've managed to come away with, and ultimately it was the difference, right, between the D-backs taking 2 out of 3 from a pretty good Orioles team. I know the record doesn't reflect it yet, but an Orioles team that we expect to be good this season, and a pretty impressive series win is the result. Final notes on the series, Jack. Pavin Smith, mentioned him earlier. He was outstanding in the series, 5 for 10, 2 doubles. That pool shot home run that you referenced earlier. Josh Naylor continues to be a real weapon in the middle of this lineup. He was 6 for 11 with 2 doubles and a home run in the series. Had a particularly big game today. And then Corbin Carroll, as we mentioned from the top of the show, 5 for 11 with a double and 2 home runs. So, even without Ketel Marte, Jack, we'll see what it looks like. But and there were a few.
I have to see how sustainable that is. Yeah.
Yeah, a few leaner games, right? Pretty much right on the heels of Ketel's injury from an offensive standpoint. But maybe this offense does have enough pieces to kind of hold their own while Ketel is out, and that would be really big if they're able to do that.
A couple of quick little tags on all of that, just to wrap it up as well. Laz Diaz was behind the home plate today, and he called a pretty good game. I don't know what it's going to grade out at, but there were no controversies. There was it looked like he called a pretty clean game behind the plate. There was a lot of joking about that beforehand because over the last number of years, he's not rated very well by sites like Umpire Scorecard and so forth.
Sure.
Jake McCarthy finally had a hit. Jake McCarthy doubled. He broke a franchise record 0 for 24 to start the season streak. It was the most at-bats, hitless at-bats. Broke a record previously held by Domingo Labor. He doubled into left center field. Of course, it was against a left-handed pitcher. And Jalen Beeks had an impressive 6-up, 6-down outing today following Pfaadt in the 7th and 8th inning. And he just continues to pitch really well.
Yeah, all good notes. We have a couple final things we want to hit before we finish off this episode 5 of Snakes Territory. This is a pretty big one, Jack. I don't know what kind of specifics we really have at this point, but Ketel Marte, we were just talking about the offense maybe trying to hold serve while he is away. What can you share at this point, Jack? It doesn't sound, at least from what I've heard, that the D-backs have gotten very specific about his timeline.
Yeah, so Torey used a very strange phrase that Ketel will be out a series of weeks. I've never heard that before. And I didn't really know what to do with that. So when I wrote my article over on Arizona Diamondbacks on SI, that's what I called it. He's out a series of weeks. I'll leave that up to the listener to try to determine, because I was guessing and speculating along with everybody else. But he did say, I said, what's the grade of the hamstring injury? And he said, well, that's a little tough to say. It's a little bit fuzzy. I used the word fuzzy. But we're calling it a 1. Okay, so a grade 1 hamstring strain, if you look it up and play Google Doctor, you might get 2 to 3 weeks spit out at you. But in this case, I mean, Ketel missed a month in 2021, like from April to May, and then went back on the IL again in July and missed 3 more weeks, re-injuring that hamstring. They're going to be pretty conservative here. I'm fairly certain of that. I mean, I'll be really surprised if Ketel Marte is in a Diamondbacks game before May 1st. I mean, I would be very surprised. So that's kind of where they're at. I mean, you got to figure that he's out at least 3 to 4 weeks, possibly longer. That's just the way it is with this kind of injury. I mean, even if he's ready to resume baseball activities and, get going, he's going to have to play in a couple of games somewhere, whether it's over at Salt River Fields or whatever. He's going to have to play in at least 2-3 games to get some timing down. So you have that issue. So maybe when the Mets come to town in early May, that's kind of what I'm looking at as when he's likely to come back. But I want to emphasize that's not the team's timeline. That's me guessing and speculating. All I have for you is a series of weeks.
Well, what more could we want, Jack? That's as specific an injury update as you can get. It will be interesting to see how long it ultimately takes. I agree with you that the Diamondbacks have really every reason to be conservative with this. I know they did just miss the postseason by 1 game last year, so you can kind of play that game, but ultimately, Ketel is just so important to this team that it doesn't, and especially with his injury background, you mentioned he does have a past with hamstrings in particular, recurring. There really isn't any reason in my mind to treat this situation with anything but really the utmost caution. So we'll see how it plays out. But maybe this is an opportunity, Jack, for Tim Tawa to get some relatively regular playing time. It's been a little spotty so far, but he's someone who has some offensive upside. So it'd be interesting to kind of see what he could do.
Well, I have an opinion about this. I know that'll shock you. And sometimes when I ask Torey questions, I'm asking him in a way that lets him know that I have an opinion. And I did so today. And I just said, considering Tawa's potential upside at the plate, I mean, the guy has hit really, really well in the minor leagues the last couple of years. Does it make sense to let him get out there and get 3, 4, 5 starts in a row and get on a roll? See if you can get this guy on a roll and catch lightning in a bottle. And Torey kind of acknowledged that thought process. That yes, we've thought about that, but at the same time, he's not willing to just all of a sudden commit to the guy as his starting second baseman, which I understand. He's a rookie, and he's just coming off a game where he made a critical defensive miscue that cost a couple of runs. And Torey's always going to err on the side of defense. That's just who he is. It's his makeup. It's how he views the game. Pick up the baseball's rule number 1. Not that Tawa is, he's a pretty good defensive player, I think. I think he's very athletic. He can make some nice plays. That day that he made the miscue, shortly after that, he crossed the bag into the hole, picked up a sharp hopper, and did a spinning jump throw and got the out at first base. Today, there was kind of an awkward feed on a double play from Perdomo, and Tawa was really good at getting the ball out quickly and over to first base to get the out. I'm pretty convinced he can play the position, that miscue notwithstanding. But I want to see if this guy can hit. I think that there's upside in the bat, and I think that they should find out if it's there, if they can get it out of him. Blaze Alexander is on a rehab assignment. He's probably not too far off. I don't know how many games he's going to need, but he's an option to come back if they want to.
Tawa,
pretty soon.
I guess with Tawa, if he's able to play a reasonably good second base, which so far that one play notwithstanding, it seems like he probably can do that. You have the makings of a pretty valuable player, right? If you have a guy who can hold his own offensively and play all over the diamond, like that's something that the Diamondbacks, I think, would really benefit from. So, maybe there's a world where Ketel Marte comes back and somehow Tim Tawa is still finds his way on this roster. It'd be interesting to see. One other topic we wanted to hit before we say goodbye is with regard to Ryne Nelson. Nelson has now made 3 appearances in this young season, Jack, and he has thrown fewer and fewer pitches every time. His first outing was 50 pitches, then it was 33 back on April 3rd against the Yankees, and then he pitched on Monday in this Orioles series after Zach Gallen's not so great start. He threw 31 pitches in 3 innings, and that game was pretty good. We just continue to have this question, right, of what is the Diamondbacks' plan with Ryne Nelson? Are they getting into the danger zone where they can't really bring him back as a starter at this point?
It was funny. I talked to Ryan about this, of course, and he said that he could have easily have gone like 45, 50 pitches. He felt pretty strong that he could have gone that far on Monday. I think he got close to 60 pitches towards the end of spring training, but clearly he's been less than that. He said, look, I don't want to, just throw extra pitches because I don't need to. I mean, he was 9 up, 9 down. He pitched very well. So, you don't want to throw extra pitches just because you need to get your pitch count up. Torrey has said repeatedly over the last few days that he still feels that they're not too far away from being able to stretch him out as a starter, that they can still consider him stretched out as long as he's still throwing in that 30 to 35 pitch range. But it's still going to take a couple of outings to be able to throw 85, 90.
Right.
So I don't really know how if he was needed to start, there would be a couple of short starts before he could be a full-blown, 6-7 inning starter. That seems certain. Then Torrey once again emphasized, though, if he ends up getting shortened up, if he goes below that 30, 35 pitch threshold and starts getting shortened up, they get past the point of no return, and then that's it. He's a reliever for good for the rest of the year. So this is still very much up in the air. We have a little bit of show me going on with this because of their past history with Ray Jamison, John Duplantier, and all of those factors. But Torrey puts a lot of faith in Brian Kaplan and feels like he's got a program and he's got this all mapped out and a way to handle it. But there's also a looming bullpen crunch. So you have Kendall Graveman and Kevin Ginkel currently on the injured list, one with a back strain, the other with a shoulder inflammation issue. They both threw bullpens yesterday. They're going to throw bullpens again on Friday. I don't know how many more than live BPs and then rehab games, whether they're minor league rehab games at Salt River or out with the Reno Aces. They haven't indicated that yet. But those guys are what? If they don't have any setbacks, they can't be much more than a couple of weeks from coming back. So then what do? You can't, if Jalen Beeks and Shelby Miller keep pitching like they are, well, you're not going to jettison those guys. You can't, you can't just option those guys out. You could option Bryce Jarvis and you could option Ryne Nelson and send them back to AAA to keep them stretched out, which seems like a tough pill to swallow to have your best pitcher from July 1 onwards last year end up in AAA. That just, it doesn't quite set right. But that's the situation they have. And, oh, by the way, don't forget about Dre Jamison, who's pitched very well so far for the Reno Aces, hasn't checked off the box of pitching 2 in a row. So if you got Ginkel and Graveman and Jamison ready to roll, I don't know where everybody fits. So I see it as, the way I've described it, as a looming bullpen roster crunch. Now, those things usually tend to work themselves out. You never know who's going to start underperforming or come up sore or lame at some point. So they have a little bit of time, but they don't have that much. I mean, I think that's going to pretty sharply come to a head within 2 weeks.
I think as brutal as it would be to send Ryne Nelson down to get stretched out, I also think that no matter how optimistic you're feeling about the health of this rotation in 2025, you can book it right now. Like, a Diamondback starter is going to get hurt, and it's probably not going to take very long for it to happen, right? Last season, I think the Diamondbacks used 11 starters, not including openers from the bullpen, if I'm remembering correctly. So, and obviously last year was more the exception than the rule, with how much they had to rely on some of their starting pitching depth, but no matter what, like you're going to need to tap into that depth at some point. So if Ryne Nelson does get sent down in order to be stretched out, you can probably be fairly confident that he's gonna get an opportunity before too long. It's just kind of the way that things tend to go.
Right. And the flip side of that is if he does end up getting shortened out and they can't stretch him back out, now you've lost a very important piece of your starting pitching depth.
Right.
And now you're basically down to Christian Mena, Gilbert Diaz, and Tommy Henry as your options if you need a starter. I published a pretty comprehensive article on this situation together with Michael McDermott, and I think that it's worth a read. Lots of quotes, lots of conversation. Ryne Nelson talked a little bit about being willing to fill any role. He said, sure, it'd be kind of cool if I did get shortened up to, maybe get an opportunity to close, but we have other guys that can do that job. I'd love to be a starter, but for now, my role is to eat innings in the bullpen and protect the other relievers and protect the starters. And if I can get a few high leverage opportunities here and there, that'd be great too. So he's got that team mentality, but the bottom line is it's all really squirrely to me. I mean, 35 pitches is already borderline no longer stretched out. I can see him. He could have gone Monday 45 or 50. Maybe you can, only need 2, maybe 3 outings to get him to 90 plus pitches and be able to give you 6 innings. We'll see. But if they do have to turn to him as a starter, he's going to need a long reliever behind him for at least a couple of those outings.
The Diamondbacks' track record, as you referenced earlier, with these kinds of situations is not exactly great. Obviously, Trey Jameson, they sort of went back and forth between the two roles with him back in 2023, and it didn't end well, right? He wound up needing Tommy John surgery. There's no definitive way, of course, to tell whether the Diamondbacks having him, using him that way is actually what caused him needing Tommy John surgery. Maybe it's a coincidence, but at the very least, Diamondbacks, I think there's some reason to be skeptical of the way that they've handled these kinds of situations.
Well, they said the same things back then. I mean, they said the same exact things that they're saying now with Nelson that they said about Jameson, in learning from the lessons of John Duplantier. So, we'll see. I hate to be that skeptical. It's a tough situation to manage. I mean, there's a lot of balls in the air, and they're trying to win games. So not easy. That's why they get paid the big bucks. They've all forgotten more than I know about this game. So I'm not second guessing them. I just have some reservations about the current situation.
Well, the Diamondbacks take 2 out of 3 from the Baltimore Orioles, all the way around a successful start to the week. They have the Milwaukee Brewers coming up this weekend. We have another show coming for you Thursday night or Friday morning at some point in that range. We'll preview the Brewers series, talk some more storylines surrounding the Diamondbacks in this young season, so be sure to be on the lookout for that one. As always, we really appreciate you joining us here on Snakes Territory. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are at Snakes Territory. We just crossed over the 400 threshold, which we really, really appreciate all the support here early on. Another way you can support on YouTube is by liking the video and dropping a comment. Let us know what you think of the show, what you think of any of the topics that we discuss in this episode. We really love hearing from you and interacting with you there. Also, if you're one of those people who likes to do the audio only thing, if you'd consider leaving us a rating and review over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, that's also a really, really huge help for us here in the early stages. Jack does an outstanding job covering the Diamondbacks over at Arizona Diamondbacks on SI. He referenced a couple of his articles earlier in the show, so be sure to keep an eye out for his work over there. It is si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. You can read not only his stuff, but all the stuff from all of the great writers on the team that he has assembled over there at Diamondbacks on SI. Finally, the social media stuff. You probably know it by now. I'm at Jesse N. Friedman over on X. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. And you can also follow our show at Snakes Territory. Jack, anything else before we say goodbye?
I think that pretty much covers it. It's been a really interesting week, and I hope everyone has a great finish to the week and riding into the weekend.
All righty. Well, thanks again to everyone for hopping on with us here on Snakes Territory. We really appreciate it. And be sure to join us again soon. We'll be back here on Snakes Territory here very, very soon.